Avast, ye scurvy dogs, and sit back for a tale of dangerous waters. Pirates prowl the sea lanes like sharks, preying upon merchants who travel between the inner sea and the frontiers of Sargala. But in the Shackles, not even pirates are safe. Other scalawags are often the most tempting and lucrative targets. Our brave adventurers will risk their lives at the Raker Shoals. Several of the misshapen formations that make up this low-lying reef take the shape of shattered bowsprits or overturned hulls. These are mere suggestions of the numerous vessels that have sunk here. A particularly vicious breed of starfish makes slow war against the urchins living amid the coral. That's one more reason even the bravest buccaneers avoid this voyage-ending K. They'll also have to brave the fog bank. Strange visions take shape amidst the drifting banks of fog, but it's not the spectral shapes of enemy ships, the formless shadows that slither in the vessel's wake, or the dread of hull-smashing rocks that so unnerve pirate crews. It's the sound of distant whispers that drift through the mist, half-heard warnings that seem to slip from beneath the waves themselves. And they may have to visit the Cannibal Isle. For abandoned or shipwrecked sailors, every one of the Shackles' hundreds of islands might as well be a world unto itself. While a few are lush paradises, many prove far more brutal. Those who hope to survive can't be bound by the delicate preferences of distant civilized lands. This proves doubly true after castaways get their first taste of pirate long pig. And finally, the shipwreck graveyard. Beneath the waves lie a larger armada of pirate vessels than will ever sail above. Seemingly peaceful waters sometimes hide morbid seabeds, the final resting places of ages' worth of ships and their ill-fated crews. The promise of sunken plunder draws reckless treasure hunters to these briny graveyards, but as often as not, would-be looters end up joining the sunken fleets. Hey folks, it's Stefan here. Welcome to another Pathfinder Adventure Card Game Skull and Shackles playthrough. We are playing the Dangerous Waters scenario today. And let's flip this around and see what happens at the Dangerous Waters. The villain is Gemma Redclaw and the henchmen are buccaneers. During this scenario, when any character encounters a buccaneer henchman, each character at another location must summon and encounter a buccaneer henchman. So it might give you a motivation to travel around together. The reward is each character draws a random weapon from the box, gain the class 0 ship feat. And let's take a look at the locations. We have the Raker Shoals. At this location, at the start of your turn, your ship is dealt 1 structural damage. When closing, your ship is dealt 4 structural damage. If your ship is wrecked, the location is not closed. So that's going to be a tough one to close. Fog Bank. After you play a card or use a power that examines cards in this location deck, shuffle it. When closing, recharge your hand, which must contain at least 1 card. When permanently closed, on closing, draw the same number of cards you recharged when closing. Cannibal Isle. After you reset your hand, bury an ally. When closing, strength or melee 6. And the Shipwreck Graveyard. At the start of your turn, succeed at a Wisdom or Survival 5 check, or your ship is dealt 1d4 structural damage. When closing, roll on a plunder table, then summon and acquire a random card of that type. On closing, your ship is dealt 1d4 structural damage. Wow, so lots of difficulty for the ship. So I think what we're going to do is start off in separate locations and not the two that are dangerous for your ship. So Jarrell's going to be here at the Fog Bank, and Lyrion will be at Cannibal Isle. And we'll just get started here. Drawing the first Blessings card, and it's Blessing of the Gods. And Jarrell encounters a Phantasmal Minion spell. Check to acquire Intelligence Arcane 4. Discard this card to give a card to another character. Discard this card to allow another character at your location to give you a card. Okay, not really that exciting, but a card is a card. So let's see if we get a 4 on a d4. We do not, so we don't acquire. We're not going to spend any blessings yet here to increase our exploration, so we're going to switch over to Lyrion and see what she finds. She finds a Blessing of the Gods, which goes directly into her hand. Now she has a Lookout. Recharge this card to examine the top card of your location deck. I think we'll do that. That sounds like a pretty useful ability. Examine the top card, and it is a Crab Swarm. The combat 8, and this is one of these cards where if you succeed on the first roll, you have to roll a second time, and you have to use the second result. She could choose to encounter it by using the blessing, but I think I'd rather have the blessing for that fight. So we're going to switch the play back over to Lyrion, who encounters Kuru. Check to defeat combat 10. If undefeated, the Kuru deals no damage. Instead, bury a random card from your hand. He's a cannibal. He should probably be on the cannibal aisle, but here he's in the fog bank apparently. Combat 10. We do have a rapier, and her ability says, for your check that has or is against a card that has the finesse trait, you gain the skill melee dexterity +2. So she's D10 +2 for melee. And then if she uses the rapier, that gives her another 2d4. And if your check has the swashbuckling trait, you may re-roll 1 die on your check. You must take the second result. So if we have a bad roll, we can potentially overcome that. Let's just go with a straight up 2d10, d10 plus 2d4 plus 2. So 1, 2, 3. We need better than that. There we go. Plus 2 is 13, and that defeats the Kuru. And that will be the end of Jarell's turn. I'm going back over to Lyrion. She gets a Blessing of Savannah. Discard this card to add 2 dice to any non-combat intelligence or charisma check. Well, we know that what we're going to encounter here is a crab swarm, so that's probably not going to help. Combat 8. And remember, we have to roll this again if we fail, even if we succeed. So let's see. Unfortunately, we only have a dagger right now. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your dexterity or range skill plus 1d4. You may additionally recharge this card to add another 1d4. So that's going to be a d8 plus, we'll do the recharge, so that's d8 plus 2d4 plus 3. d8, 1, 2, d4. And that's a 9, which would be enough to beat him, but then we have to roll it again, because that's the way the card goes. So d8, 1d4, 2d4, and we get an 11. Plus 3 is 14, so the crab swarm is defeated. And now we need to recharge our dagger. Now she has no weapons in hand, so she's going to reset her hand and gets a pistol. So that's good. And now we're back to Jarell. And she explores her location, and it is a skeleton. Combat 8. He's immune to mental and poison. If the check to defeat has a piercing or slashing trait, the difficulty of the check is increased by 3. Well, I'm going to guess the rapier does have the piercing trait. It does, so now he's an 11. He's an 11, so that's a d10 plus 2 plus 2d4 to get an 11. What's the Master at Arms do first? Recharge this card to add 1d4 to your melee combat check, or 1d6 if you're on a ship, which we are. And we already have the finesse trait, so we're going to recharge this. So that's going to be a 1d6 added on. So 1d10, 1d6, 2d4 plus 2. Let's clear that. 1d10, d6, 1, 2d4. And that gives us, well, plenty to take out the skeleton. And the Master at Arms gets recharged. Let's see, where are we at here? We've only spent 5 blessings right now, so she's just going to reset. And she gets a chain shirt, so she's got some armor now. Back over to Lyrion. And she encounters a turtle. Check to acquire Wisdom Survival 5. So that's a d12 for her to acquire this guy. Let's clear this. We need a 5 or better. We get a 5. Okay. So turtle joins our ranks. And we might as well use him because we would have to bury him otherwise. So we'll just use him to explore again. And it's a skeleton. Combat 8. And let's see if her weapon has the piercing or slashing trait. It probably does. Piercing and a pistol. So yes, he's going to be an 11. So that for her is a D8 plus a D6 plus 3. So she's going to spend a blessing to get that up to 2D8 plus a D6 plus 3. There's 1, 2, D6 plus 3, 16, easily beats an 11, and she will reset her hand now. Gets another blessing of the gods. Alright, now this is one of the new cards in this set. It is actually in the Rise of the Rune Lords, but we didn't encounter it until we went into like the 4th adventure. So, but it's a really nice one. Discard this card to add 2 dice to any check to close a location. We're back over to Jarell. And it's an ambush. Check to defeat, Dexterity, Acrobatics, Wisdom, Perception 9. The difficulty to defeat this barrier is increased by the adventure dex number of the current scenario. There isn't one. If undefeated, you may explore again. If defeated, examine the location deck until you find a monster and counter it, subtracting 1 from each die rolled in your check. Banish this card and shuffle the remaining cards into the location deck. Sounds pretty bad. Well, let's see what the Besmar and Priest can do, actually. 1d6 to Wisdom. Survival doesn't come into it, so that would just be a d8 plus a d6 versus a d10 plus 1. This is a Bane. To defeat a Bane or ship. So that would be another 1d4 to defeat this. Does she recharge for that ability? Yeah. So that would be 2 recharges. So that would give you a d6 and a d4 plus a d10, plus a d8 to get a 9. So let's go that route because it seems more interesting. d8, d6, d4, 14 points. So that beats this, and that allows us to explore again. And it's a henchman, the Buccaneer, combat 8. Difficulty to defeat is increased by the adventure deck number of the current scenario. If the check to defeat has a swashbuckling trait, the difficulty is increased by twice the adventure deck number. Well, that's terrible, but luckily there isn't an adventure deck number. Alright, now, we need to remember that this is going to cause Lyrian to have to encounter a Buccaneer as well, because she's at a different location right now. But first, let's deal with Jarell's check. So it's going to be a d10 plus 2 plus 2d4 to get an 8. And what is the closing cost on this? Recharge your hand. Okay, so the closing cost is not a problem, really. So the closing is easy. So this is a d10 plus 2d4 plus 2. So that's starting at a 5 to get an 8. I think that's not too bad. So d10, 1, 2. Of course, if you get a 1, it's not helpful, but we still made the check. So we defeat the Buccaneer. Recharge your hand, which must contain at least 1 card. So we have 3 cards. It's 1, 2, and 3. Go into the stack. And they get recharged. So they go under the deck. And she hasn't even spent any cards yet. That's nice. On closing, draw the same number of cards you recharged when closing. So now we're going to draw 3 cards. So 1, 2, and 3. 2 blessings and a cutlass plus 1. So not too bad, actually. Now it's still Jarell's turn, but now Lyrian needs to encounter the Buccaneer. So he's combat 8. So that's a pistol. That's a d8 plus a d6 plus 3. So again, starting at a 5 to get an 8. d8 plus d6 plus 3 is only 7, actually. Yeah, so we missed it by 1. So we're going to take 1 point of damage from this guy. Recharge this card to reduce combat damage dealt to you by 1. So we will do that. Recharge our leather armor here. Not a big deal. I mean, this guy was summoned. He doesn't really have any bearing on whether the close happened or not. And we've already done the when permanently closed. We should have flipped this over already. We know that the villain cannot be here, because we've just finished off the henchman, so that's what was in here. So let's just pull out the cards and put them back in their respective piles. Alright, well that's one location closed, and now Jarell fully resets her hand. 3 blessings of the gods. Let's have something other than a blessing. A rapier. Okay. Now it's back over to Lyrion. We're not even 10 blessings through the deck here. Doing pretty well. And we find a blessing of the gods. So immediately acquires that. And she will discard that and explore again. And it is a man overboard. If undefeated, well, first off, check to defeat Dexterity 7, which for her is just a D8. If undefeated, display this card next to a random character. At the start of each character's turn, the character next to this card must succeed at a Constitution or Fortitude 7 check to banish this card. Otherwise, that character must bury the top card of their deck. Yeah, that's tough. We definitely want to beat this, because neither one of them really has a good Fortitude. They're both D6. Jarell's going to give her a blessing, so that's 2d8 to get a 7. Yeah, but I think we really want to make sure we don't have this happen. So she's going to make this 3d8 to get a 7, just to be sure. So 1, 2, and 3. Well, and even then it's not a guarantee. But we get a 13, so we do beat it. So she's going to reset. Gets another pistol. Where's our dragon pistol? Oh, Blessing of Aristil, that's good. I guess she will move over here with Lyrion. So now they're both in the same place, and she will encounter the next card. Oh, and it's a Buccaneer. Check to defeat combat 8. Well, we've been through this before. Okay. So she's got a Cutlass +1 now, which is going to be a D10 +2 +1d6 +1. So a D10 plus D6 +3. We want to be sure we do this. So I'm going to go with 2d10 plus a d6 +3. That's 1, 2, and a d6. And it's a good thing I did, because those are pretty bad rolls. But we get a 3 added on to that, so that's a 9, and that is enough to beat this Buccaneer. I'm very glad that I rolled that extra one. And now the closing cost. Succeed at a strength or melee 6. Well, she has just a d6 for strength. But she does have a blessing in hand, so she'll spend the blessing. So now that's 2d6, and there's not many cards left in there. Oh, and we're not going to get it, are we? We didn't get it. Alright, unfortunate. So we didn't close this. So after you reset your hand, bury an ally. So she's probably going to acquire an ally here in the reset. So she's going to have to bury them. Bury this guy down here. And switching back over to Lyrion. It's a pirate. It's a parrot. Check to acquire Wisdom Survival 7. Well, she's got a D12 for Wisdom. If you would fail a check by 4 or less, you may bury this card to ignore the result and re-roll the dice. You must take the second result. That's a D12 to get a 7. Not with a 1. Get a lot of 1s, I have to say. I'm not sure about this app. So we're just going to switch back to Jarell, who gets a blessing of Achikek. And the card here is a Bunyip. Check to defeat combat 9. Damage dealt by the Bunyip may not be reduced. Before you act, succeed at a Wisdom 9 check, or the difficulty of your checks is increased by 1 for the rest of the turn. Well, she can't make a Wisdom 9 without using a blessing. Difficulty of your checks. Well, so it's going to make him a 10. I'd rather just do that rather than spending a blessing on that. Where's our good weapon here? Cutlass +1. So that's a D10 plus a D6 plus 3. And she's got a blessing, so it's going to be 2d10 plus a d6 plus 3. So it's 1, 2, and a d6. And that's a total of 9 plus 3, thankfully. Puts us at 12, so we do beat the Bunyip. Can't close, she's going to reset. Another blessing. And a Master at Arms, and unfortunately, because we're here at the Cannibal Isle, after you reset bury an ally, he's got to get buried here with the Boatswain. And it switches back to Lyrion, who encounters the last card in the deck, and it's another parrot. So that is going to be another Wisdom 7. So a d12. Let's get better than a 1 this time. Oh, come on. 2 1s on a d12. Yeah. Sorry, parrot. Would be a good card to have. Well, she has a chance now to succeed at a strength or melee 6. She doesn't have a very good chance, though, because she only has a d4 for that. Who has the most cards? Okay. Jarrell definitely has the most cards. Glibness is not going to help. We could both spend a blessing, and then that would make it 3d4 to get a 6. Which could be worse, I guess. Yeah, let's just do that. I think we need to close the location. So 3d4s. 1, 2, and 3. And please don't knock each other. Okay, we closed it. Flip that over. That's closed. It's empty and closed, in fact. So, there's the dragon pistol. Which will be nice to have. And it switches back to Jarrell. And out of the 2 bad locations that we have, let's see. At the start of your turn, succeed at a Wisdom or Survival 5. So that for her is a d8 plus 3, which isn't too bad. Or your ship is dealt 1d4 structural damage. Or, at the start of your turn, your ship is dealt 1 structural damage. But she can absorb that. Reduce structural damage to your ship by 1. When closing, your ship is dealt 4 structural damage. Well, I guess she's going to move over here then. Because this sounds like the better one. At least for now. Ah! It's the villain, right on top. Gemma Redclaw. Monster. Check to defeat combat 11. Before you act, recharge a card. Then summon and encounter the ship Shackles pirate ship. Oh boy. If undefeated, bury the bottom 1d4 cards of your deck. Recharge a card. We'll recharge the rapier. Summon and encounter the ship Shackles pirate ship. So that's going to be in the ship's deck here. Class 0. Check to defeat dexterity disable 8 or wisdom survival 6. If your check to defeat has a swashbuckling trait, add 1 to it. Dexterity disable or wisdom survival. Well, her survival is a d8 plus 3. So we're definitely going to go with survival. Nobody's got a blessing on the table. We won't have the swashbuckling trait because we're not doing combat. D8 plus 3 for us. 3 or better, please. We have an 8. So we do defeat it. Now back to Gemma Redclaw. She is a combat 11. Okay. So that's going to be a Cutlass plus 1. No blessings on the table, though. So that's a d10 plus a d6 plus 3. So 5 to get an 11. What can Lyrion do to help? I think she can help here. You may shuffle a card from your hand into your deck to add 1d4 to any combat check. So she's going to do that. I don't think glibness is going to come into play in this particular scenario, so we'll shuffle this in. I think it's another d4. So d10, d6, d4 plus 3. d10, d6, d4 plus 3. That's enough to defeat Gemma Redclaw. However, there's an open location. So this location gets closed automatically, which is actually pretty cool. On closing, discard a card. We do have to do that. which is unfortunate. That puts us in a tough spot because we only have 6 cards in our hand. But, so she can't go here. This is the only place she can go, so that's where she's going to go. And then this gets shuffled. And then this is closed. And now Jarell resets her hand. There's the Besmarn Priest back. And the Lookout, the Spyglass, that's going to be a good thing. And we switch back over to Lyrian, who gets a Blessing of Milani, Dexterity or Wisdom. Okay, decent. So she is going to go here to the Shipwreck Graveyard. And we're not starting our turn here, so we don't have to worry about that effect right now. And it is a Wooden Shield, Constitution Fortitude 4. So it's a D6 plus 1 for her. And we do acquire. Doesn't have a way to explore again. So goes back to Jarell. She's going to come over and join. And it's a musket. Well, this could be potentially good for Lyrian. Dexterity range craft 7. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your dexterity or range skill plus 1d10. You may additionally bear this card to add another 1d10. If you did not bear this card, you do a 1d6 one. It's pretty much the same as anything. Anyway, that's worth acquiring. Dexterity ranged. Well, she doesn't have a range. She has a d10 for dexterity, and we don't have any blessings, so she's got to get pretty lucky here. A d10 to get 7 or better. Oh, and we get it. Nice. Very nice. Do like that. I mean, I think that's going to be an improvement for Lyrian. Well, she doesn't. Well, she could explore again with the Besmarn Priest, but let's see. Discard this card to examine the top 2 cards of your location deck and put them back in any order. I think we will do that. So we need to know where this villain is. And that's not going to come into. It's going to come into play soon when Lyrian goes. Okay, so that's a barrier and a pirate. He's a combat 9, and this is a strength melee 10. Neither one of them can make that. Our dexterity disable 9. Well, it's not much easier for either of them. But this doesn't have any bad effect. It's just that you might not get the benefit. So I'm going to put that on the bottom, and we'll put him on the top. And we're going to switch to Lyrian. And she's going to encounter the Shackles pirate. Oh wait, first. At the start of your turn, succeed at a Wisdom or Survival 5. So it's a D12 for us. 5 or better, please. 5 or better. Not a 2. Not a 2. We got a 2. Alright, so that's 3. No, wait, see. We didn't succeed, so now we roll a 1d4. Okay, 1d4. And it's a 2. Well, Lyrian can reduce structural damage to your ship by 1. And they're both here on the ship, so I think that's fine. And then somebody just has to discard to make up the other one, so Lyrian will discard the buckler. Now she encounters the Shackles pirate. Combat 9. Difficulty of the check to defeat is increased by the adventure deck number of the current scenario, if any. There isn't one. If the check to defeat has the swashbuckling trait, add 1d4 to it. And I think... Well, if we use the dragon pistol, no, we don't have the swashbuckling trait. But if we use the pistol, well, I guess they're both pistols, then we do get the swashbuckling trait. So let's use the pistol. So d8 plus d6 plus 3, and then another d4 on top of that. Okay. So d8, d6, d4. This plus 3. Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? I got 3? I got 3. But there were so many ones. It's crazy, so many ones. Okay, well, that's not good. We got 3, so that was 6 total, so that's 3 points of damage, which is my entire hand, and I'm afraid to say I think that's all my weapons. He's not defeated, so guess what? He gets shuffled back into here. And having trouble with this last location. She resets. Luckily her hand size is only 4, so she can... Oh, there's a dagger. Okay, she's got 1 weapon. Not much else going on. I don't think she has any other weapons. Back to Jarell. And, well, she encountered the same guy, even though we shuffled it. So for her, we'll use the Cutlass +1. So a D10 plus the D6 plus 3, and then we'll get the D4 because we do have the swashbuckling trait. Let's do a little bit better. D10, 6, and there's another 1. But luckily the others made up for the difference. And this time we defeat the Shackles pirate. You can go back into the box. Oh, but we need to do this. I forgot this starting check. Wisdom survival, so D8 plus 3. D8 plus 3. Where'd it go? 6 to get 5, so we don't take any damage. We're going to switch it back over to Lyrion. Although Lyrion's not well situated to take on Gemma Redclaw, which is what I was concerned about. But first we have to do the location check. D12 to get a 5. And we get an 8 this time. So, no damage to the ship. Gemma Redclaw, before you act, recharge a card, then summon and encounter the Shackles pirate ship. So we'll recharge the Potion of Glibness. So now we have to encounter this, which is a Dexterity Disable 8. So that's a D8 for her. Not very good. A Wisdom Survival 6, which is a D12 for her. Well, she does have a Blessing. So that would be 2d12 to get a 6. 1, 2. Let's get some better rolls than we usually see, and, well, there we go. We defeat him, or the ship, and that just goes back to the ship pile. Now we go back to Gemma, and she's a combat 11. We've only got the dagger. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your dexterity or range skill plus 1d4. You may additionally recharge this card to add another d4. So a d8 plus 2d4 plus 3. Well, that's the best we can do. d8 plus 2d4 plus 3. D8, 1, 2, and there's a 1 already. But the plus 3 comes through, and that is enough to defeat Gemma Redclaw. This would have been recharged, but it doesn't really matter. And that automatically closes the location as well. That's a win. Another win for Jarell and Lyrion, taking down Gemma Redclaw. Now, let us see what we get here. Each character draws a random weapon from the box. Okay. So there's 1. She gets the whip. Oh, wait a second. I put that back on top. Yeah, we gotta shuffle this first. She gets now a harpoon, spear, ranged, piercing, two-handed, swashbuckling, elite. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your dexterity or range skill plus 1d6. Add another 1d8 if the Bane has the aquatic trait. If you fail a check to defeat a non-villain monster and you are proficient with weapons, you may put the monster on top of the location deck if it came from one. Okay, so you'd be able to encounter it again the next turn. Not bad. That's not bad. Might replace one of the pistols. Especially since there are a fair number of aquatic creatures in here. And Jarell gets... Ooh, pistol plus 1. No, I guess she's going to give this over to Lyrion. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your dexterity or range skill plus 1d6 plus 1. You may additionally bury this card to add another 1d10. And then you've got the pistol check. Yeah, that's definitely going to go to Lyrion. And let's see. Will she like to have this? She doesn't have a ranged check, though. So for her, that would just be Dex. Which is still, still decent. It's a d10. Situational, but it might be good to replace one of the rapiers with. So, yeah, I think we're going to send this over to Jarrell. And what else do we get? We gain a class 0 ship feat. And then we do get to have our Plunder, which is an Acolyte. Recharge this card to add 1d4 to your Arcane or Divine check. Recharge this card to add 1d6 to your check to recharge a card that has a magic trait. Well, neither one of us are casters, so we don't really care about that. Okay, well, that is it for Dangerous Waters. Turned out not to be as dangerous as we initially thought. We were able to get through that pretty well. Still have more than a third of the Blessings deck available. A little bit of a challenge there with having weapons get discarded for Lyrion, but overall went pretty smoothly. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. If you do, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/srcleaves. You can also follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/srcleaves and on Twitter at StefanPlays. Thanks again, and I will talk to you next time.
Ocean, we tear along the gales, with rum inside our bellies, warm and freedom in our sails. A wayward bunch of scoundrels, assassins, thieves and slaves. The rich and blue bloods fear us when we hunt upon the waves. And when you see it coming, that flag of baleful black, no point in turning tail, there's no escaping our attack. Yo ho, yo ho, we roll beneath the black flag, a rollicking we go, we own the sea and sky. Yo ho, we roll beneath the black flag, a rollicking we go, we bleed the kingdoms dry. Defy the odds against us, a pirate knows no fear. Our steel is ready and our retribution is severe. We plunder from the greedy, with blood and with our steel. We rob the rich of their ill-gotten gain and make them kneel. Behold the ocean's mysteries, the tales of ancient deeds. We follow in the footsteps of a silent secret creed.